world is outside, waiting, waiting for you to arrive. Come on, come on, crawl out of bed. You don't have to talk. Maybe I'll let you kiss me. I know you wanna stay in bed with pillows underneath your head, but baby, you got a job. I know you wanna stay in bed with pillows underneath your head, but baby, you got a job, and I need you. We all need you to wake up. Come on, come on, wake up.
We all need to wake up. Welcome to Sacramento Community Church. I'm Pastor Joe. It's so nice to be with you this morning. Thank you for those of us who are here in person, and thank you to those of us who are joining online. And thank you especially to Jenny, I hope I'm saying your name right, BIENEMANN, and her husband Robin. Welcome to both of you. Thank you for being here. And welcome to Jennifer Pantelios, and thank you for being here to talk to us this morning. Double checking to make sure this is still here in the liturgy. Great. Welcome each other. Welcome the stranger. Welcome all who come. As Christ welcomed everyone, no matter their background, no matter their social status. As Christ welcomed enemies and friends, outcasts and leaders, foreigners and neighbors, let us open our hearts and homes and lives. Let us be Christ to everyone we meet. Peace be with you. Let's show to each other the sign of God's peace. You know, we've been doing that for just a couple of weeks now. It has become, I think, maybe my favorite part of the morning. So thank you all for greeting each other and sharing peace. Not that many announcements, but also a lot of announcements today. First off, just in case you forgot, or in case the place seems unfamiliar for some reason, we are having a Climate and Folk Sunday today. So thank you again to Jenny and Jennifer for being here. Immediately following the service, we do have, I believe, our usual coffee hour, but along with it, we are having our Say It With Sweets bake sale for $10 a pound. Buy whatever sweets you want for your sweetie. Say, I love you with sweets. So I want to invite you to participate in that. And those of you who are at home, service is usually about an hour, hour and a half. So if you got here between 11:45 and 12:30 Central, you could buy some really nice stuff for your sweetie, your loved one as well. So I want to invite you to do that, even if you don't necessarily come to the service today. On that note, I do want to take a brief aside and say...
what is the sweet sale benefit?
Oh, thank you. The sweet sale, the bake sale, benefits the youth group. Kaylee is trying to get things started again, especially post-COVID. It's been really slow. And so one of the things that we really like to do is refurbish the youth room upstairs. So all proceeds are going to benefit that. And if you've been up there, it's in pretty bad shape. It really does need refurbished. So please support her and support the youth group in that. And as an aside to that, I got a call from Joy this morning that Kaylee has COVID. So if you're wondering where she is, they decided as a family to stay home just to play it safe and not spread it today. So let's hopefully do a really good job for them today and give them something to feel good about in the midst of that frustration. Moving on. Yes, good. So, in other pieces of things, so today is the last Sunday in the season of or after Epiphany, depending on how you like to think of it. And so we are getting ready to move into Lent. This upcoming Wednesday is Ash Wednesday. We will have a service at 6:30 p.m. here in the sanctuary. If you can make it, it's great. It's always a really nice service. I really enjoy doing it. If you can't make it, but you'd still like to receive the imposition of ashes, especially those of you joining us from home, please reach out to me. You can email me at sauganashchurch@gmail.com. You can call the church and you'll get my phone number from the voicemail. And call me directly, and I'm happy to come bring you ashes as long as you're within a reasonable distance. If anybody's calling from Florida, I'm sorry I can't. But if you're close by, I'm happy to bring you ashes if you would like that. So just let me know, and I'm happy to do that. And then next Sunday, Lent begins, and we have our first adult education and Christian formation class. I'm sorry it took me forever to decide this. I decided we're going to go through a book called The Pietist Option by Christopher Gerritz and Mark Patty III. It's a really enjoyable book. I thought it's a really interesting way to think about the renewal of the church and the hope for the future of the church. And so I think it could help us as we're trying to renew ourselves. And then also it kind of, when people ask me what kind of Christian I am, my answer is usually pietist, and then they go, what do you mean by that? And I say, oh, it's kind of Lutheran Reform. I just love people. And that's broadly what pietism is, and so I just wanted to introduce that idea, and I thought it'd be a good time to do it. So I will send Amazon links out, and I'm happy to scan chapters until people have them. So yeah, and this will be available for you to look at. I think that's it. Does anybody else have other announcements they'd like to share this morning? Great. Our prayer time won't be our usual pastoral prayer because of the difference in the Sunday. But if anybody has any prayer requests, there is a space on the back of the bulletin for you to take prayer requests home for you to pray over throughout the week. So does anybody have any prayer requests this morning that they'd like to share with the community? Yeah, Lori?
For the victims of the earthquake in Turkey and Syria, and also for the forest fires in Chile.
Thank you. Obviously, we want to keep Kaylee, especially, and then the rest of the McCutcheons in our prayers. Yeah, Maddie?
For people who need to access gender-affirming care, who are no longer able to receive that.
Thank you. For people who need gender affirming care and are unable to receive it? Oh, yeah, President Carter and his family. If you haven't heard, President Carter entered into hospice yesterday. Oh, yeah, sorry.
For us to communicate with each other through the spirit of the divine in each of us, rather than what we look like.
Well, with that, I invite you to stand as you feel ever able and join in our opening hymn, which this morning is going to be Care for the Earth. I tried to pass these out. If you need one, Maddie's got extras. Before we get to the opening prayer, I just want to remind you, if you'd like to take this home because it's meaningful for you, please do. But if you'd like to leave it here to be used in the future, just set it on this small mobile altar on your way out of the service today. Let us go to the Lord in prayer. Holy One, speak your word into our hearts this day, that it may kindle a light in us. May this time of worship allow us to shelter and tend the flame of your word, that it may arise as a morning star in our hearts. Speak to us again and again, that we may hear your voice calling out, Beloved. We ask this in the name of the one who was called Beloved, who taught us to pray, saying, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our sins, as we forgive those who sin against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. You may be seated.
Love resplendent, love transcendent, love incandescent and true. Love embracing, love retracing, love erasing with its warmest light all things that didn't turn out the way that you wish they had. Hope, startling hope, heartening hope, sparkling and true. Hope revealing, hope appealing, hope healing with its gentle hands all the things that didn't turn out the way that you wish they had. Hold on, don't let go. Hold on. You aching, you breaking, you shaking and true. Me stumbling, me tumbling, me fumbling with the fondest heart for the words to lift you as you lifted me when things fall apart. Hold on, hold on.
Quick plug this morning. If you would like to sign up to read in the future, there is a sign-up sheet just on the bulletin board outside. Joy was signed up to read today, and since she's not here, I'm going to go ahead and do it. Especially with this new lectionary, the readings are relatively short, and it's just a couple, and it's very simple. So the first reading this morning is from the book of Psalms. It's going to be Psalm 41, verses 7 through 10. And if you'd like to follow along, that's going to be on page 846 in your Pew Bible. Actually, it's on page 840.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. It happens. All my enemies whisper together against me. They imagine the worst for me, saying, a vile disease has beset him. He will never get up from the place where he lies. Even my close friend, someone I trusted, one who shared my bread, has lifted up his heel against me. But may you have mercy on me, Lord. Raise me up, that I may repay them. I invite you to stand as you feel led or able for the reading of the Gospel, which this morning is from Matthew, chapter 16, verse 24 through chapter 17, verse 8. And just going to double check the page there. Yes, so that starts on page 1462, if you'd like to follow. Then Jesus said to his disciples, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will find it. What good will it be for you to gain the whole world, yet forfeit your soul? Or what can you give in exchange for your soul? For the Son of Man is going to come in his Father's glory with his angels, and then he will reward everyone according to what they have done. Truly, I tell you, some who are standing here will not taste death before they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. After 6 days, Jesus took with him Peter, James, and John, brother of James, and led them up a high mountain by themselves. There he was transfigured before them. His face shone like the sun, and his clothes became as white as the light. Just then there appeared before them Moses and Elijah, talking with Jesus. Peter said to Jesus, Lord, it's good for us to be here. If you wish, I will put up 3 shelters, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah. While he was speaking, a bright cloud covered them, and a voice from the cloud said, This is my Son, whom I love. With him I am well pleased. Listen to him. When the disciples heard this, they fell face down to the ground, terrified. But Jesus came and touched them. Get up, he said. Don't be afraid. When they looked up, they saw no one except Jesus. Hear what the Spirit is saying to God's people. Thanks be to God. You may be seated. Wherever you'd like to.
Hey everyone.
Good morning.
The mic is connected here, right?
It should be.
Hi. So yeah, my name's Jennifer or Jenny, and my pronouns are she, her. So yeah, to start, I wanted to do a little activity together. So I want you all to visualize a Venn diagram with 3 circles, so it would look just like the Holy Trinity on the wall behind me. In the first circle, think about what gives you joy. In the second circle, what are your strengths? And in the third circle, what work needs doing? And then in the center, that would be what climate actions you can do. So yeah, if anyone feels comfortable or wishes to share, what are some things that give you joy? So it doesn't have to relate to climate change.
You want us to shout them out, or?
Yeah, anyone who wants to go. Yeah.
Music.
Okay, nice, yeah.
Cooking.
Cooking? Yeah, that's good. Nature, nice. Animals, yeah. Yeah, these are also things that give me joy. So y'all have some good, good things. Yeah. Okay. And then what about some strengths? What are some like personal strengths that you have? This one can be kind of hard to answer because I feel like we're not, unless we're in a job interview, we're not used to saying like, oh, this is what my strengths are. But if you wish to share.
Organized.
What is it?
Organization.
Organization. Nice. Yeah, that's a good one.
Well, we all have a mind we can use. Everyone has a mind.
Yeah.
So everyone can use the mind. That's a strength.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. A bunch of smart people in here. Definitely. Yeah.
Passion.
Nice. Yeah. Okay.
Sense of justice, like fairness.
Yeah. Those are good things. Okay. And then what about work that needs doing? So this could be more so related to climate change or like environmental and social injustices that need like work doing. Yeah.
Removing invasive species.
What is it?
I didn't hear.
Oh, removing invasive species.
Yeah, like plants.
And protecting animal life, that endangered animal life.
Yeah, definitely.
What was the circle again?
Work that needs doing.
Work
So
that
like
needs doing.
regarding environmental and social justice.
Eliminating hunger.
Eliminating hunger? Yeah, definitely.
Social equality.
Yeah, social equality. Yeah.
For equity, I guess. Maybe both.
Yeah, true. Yeah. So thank you all for partaking in that. So this is an exercise that I borrowed from this podcast called How to Save a Planet, and so they recommend writing, drawing out this Venn diagram and writing those things. And it's a nice way of, if you're trying to figure out, okay, what can I do and contribute to like the climate movement, that can give you some guidance, because sometimes it's hard to figure out what to do. And there's so many things that we can do and that would be impactful for, mitigating climate change and finding justice. And so we don't all have to be doing the same thing, but we can work collectively, like with different groups and organizations. So I want to share what I wrote in my Venn diagram. A couple of things that give me joy are green spaces and finding communities that share my values. Some of my strengths are that I'm a leader and a team player, and I'm knowledgeable about native plants and sustainable agriculture. And for work that needs doing, I wrote the need for more green spaces in our cities and using regenerative and sustainable farming methods. So those are just a few examples. My work this past year has consisted of being a garden instructor for teens. So I get to share ideas of sustainable gardening and agriculture with very bright and enthusiastic high school teens. And I do this with an organization called After School Matters. I also have worked with Red Stem Native Landscapes, and in this landscaping company, they use native plants to establish rain gardens, and just native gardens in general that can support pollinators and birds. Outside of my work, I volunteer with local environmental and social justice organizations. So this is like the climate actions that I've been doing, but there's still more that I want to be doing and be involved in. So for some of us, climate actions could be work that we do, but it doesn't have to be. It could be advocating within our workplaces for those places to be more sustainable and ethical, or even outside of that, it doesn't have to do with things that we get paid to do. It could be activism and volunteering in our own time, and collaborating with others to, do climate actions. Climate actions are not for the burden of younger generations to take on alone. It's for everyone to take part in. It just takes figuring out what your role is. So thank you all for partaking in that activity with me. Just knock something down. Moving on from that, I want to talk about how environmental and social injustice are intertwined. So in Atlanta, Georgia, there are forest defenders of the Wee-Launi Forest who have been advocating against this proposed idea to build a cop city. So I'm not sure if any of you have heard of this, but Cop City is a militarized police base that would be used for explosive testing, and this would be located right next to a Black and brown working class community. So by building this base, they want to cut down over 100 acres of forest. Cop City would inflict violence on the community that it would be right near, and also on the forest itself. For further proof, the forest defender, who goes by the name Tortuguita, was shot by the police in January and killed. Cop City is believed to have the motive to stop movement politics and movement building. Tortuguita has been described by friends and fellow forest defenders as a radiant and joyful being, and beloved community member. They fought tirelessly to honor and protect the sacred land of Wee-Launi Forest. We have seen time and time again that the police and the state treat the earth and its people as expendable. The act of cutting down trees next to a BIPOC community alone can be an act of environmental racism, removing these air-cleaning organisms and increasing chances of asthma in communities that live in heavily polluted air. And I want to make a note, so when I refer to the term BIPOC, that stands for Black, Indigenous, and People of Color. So it's acronym for those identities. Let's expand on environmental racism. Environmental racism is a form of systemic racism where working class BIPOC communities are disproportionately burdened with health hazards through policies and practices, or lack of policies and practices, that force these communities to live in proximity to toxic waste sites, higher exposure of air pollutants, landfills, lead poisoning, and other industrial complexes, compared to white communities. In the US, it is estimated that 70% of contaminated waste sites are located in low-income neighborhoods, and over 2 million Americans live within a mile of these sites that are vulnerable to flooding. Remaining silent allows injustice to continue, so we must speak up and join in the various social justice efforts for and with the BIPOC community as allies. So as I think about environmental and social injustices and all the ways in which it is overwhelming, I search for inspiration. In theme of Black History Month, let's talk a little bit about Black liberation. A podcast I listened to recently on Translash Media episode called A New Black Trans Civil Rights Agenda spoke about Black liberation in such an inspiring way. The podcast host, Amara Jones, tells us that Black people enslaved in an urban environment had the ability to use the nighttime to hire themselves out to continue to do labor once they've completed their work during the day. Once, I want to repeat that again, once enslaved Black people finished their tasks during the day, they could continue to work at night, because I didn't know that. Make a little money off of it. So the first African Baptist church in Savannah, Atlanta, Georgia, was built by slaves at night. And one of the things that they did is build a secret tunnel from the bottom of the church down to the Savannah River as an escape route, which was built before the Underground Railroad. Those black people that were enslaved were building a tunnel that they themselves knew they would never ever use, and they built it for other people to be free. The church was said to later be used as a stop for freedom seekers traveling along the Underground Railroad. These enslaved people were envisioning and creating an alternative life to what they were living, for a pathway of liberation even during a time when their lives were horrifically controlled and oppressed. No one is free until everyone is free. That means fighting for the liberation and inclusion of all marginalized identities, including BIPOC, disabled, trans, and LGBTQ+ communities. The need for uprooting our current systems and changing our ways of living so that everyone can be free is dire. When we do environmental and social justice actions, we should be envisioning a world we can all thrive in and be liberated in, and being sure to uplift and listen to the voices of those marginalized identities. To finish, I'm going to read to you a page from a novel called In Another Place Not Here by Dion Brand. Dion Brand writes a story about two Caribbean black women, one who's enslaved and the other who is not, but both in search of black liberation. And so this is a book that I'm personally reading. And it just describes like a time when this woman, like one of the main characters in the book is going on a protest, and just like that feeling of power. So she says, "The movement is not hard to find. Her hair takes months to grow back. The rooms are packed with sisters and brothers like her, excited and eager, who have, like her, awakened themselves. Their skin is electrified black, burning. It is as if they suddenly became aware of its power, where they had only known weakness. She's learning so quickly, it is as if her memory merely needs to be recalled. What she will recall to her last minute is the crowd of them, May 25th, 1973. The late morning had not decided what to do, hot or cold, so it was warm. The crowd gathering like a sea, the skin of it sinuating from the park as Christie and Bloor to Harvard and Bathurst. She marched in the middle of it, near the front, trying to look serious, but wanting to laugh for the joy bubbling in her chest. The crowd around her like sugar. Sugar is what she recalled. Shook down her back by her sister, sticky and grainy, wanting you to laugh. And the shock and strangeness of her skin shaking sugar. The crowd like sugar down her back, sisters and brothers to the left and right of her marching. So much goes through her when the chant pushes from her lips, she wants to cry, and all of her feels like melting into it, sugar. Power to the people! The crowd and her voice sugaring. If it was time to die, she would die in here, in the middle of a crowd, chanting, power to the people! They all know why this chant propels them along the winding way more than any other. It fills their mouths with all they need. And when they raise their fists, it gushes from the tight folds. They need to feel outside of some power that holds them down. They all knew the extra meaning of what they did each day, from sunup to sundown, the kitchens, the rubber factory. They know the extra word here and the paycheck less a few dollars, and the secret pinch like the pinch of two small shoes. They know the blow that is not physical, near the heart and wincing, half the face open. They invent sugar. She marches along with the crowd without the pain in her chest. So I read that all to you to share the sense of power that people do have and can have as a collective. So yeah, I encourage you all to find what you can do to play your part in climate action. Yeah, and thank you for letting me talk up here.
Thank you for that wonderful talk. This is a song that builds on the themes of being in the great outdoors, being in love with life and each other. Excuse me. Light a match for me. Let's build a fire so bright neighbors could see all night. Your love's a flame, burning the dark, so warm, but it don't burn me. All night. When we return, embers burn. Will the mountain fire all night?
struck by, how do I want to put it? There's a really powerful feeling of what it is like to be alive right now. To listen to the harsh realities of the world that we live in, the truth of what people are facing in their daily lives, and then to follow it up with a beautiful song that is just peaceful and kind of brings you back to level. And, anybody who watches the news and then goes and does anything else, I think can feel that. I don't know. So thank you. Thank you for that experience. Thinking about the passage from the gospel text this morning kind of fascinates me. Not because of what it includes, but because of what it leaves out. To briefly address what we have read this morning, Jesus is telling his disciples that he will be crucified. And he encourages them to take up their own crosses and follow him to their own untimely deaths. He strings together a series of teachings that have become cliche in our time, but are very much about the question of commitment to his cause and the reward for pursuing it to the logical end. And then all of a sudden we shift chapters. We're 6 days later, and Jesus is taking his three closest disciples. It doesn't say that explicitly, but like, if you're going to bring three named people up, they're probably the people you're closest to, up the mountain with him to pray when they experience this sudden miracle of Moses and Elijah appearing in their glorified forms and talking with Jesus, while the disciples kind of babble nonsensically about building shelters for these three figures of Jewish history. And all of a sudden, as they're talking about building these structures, God's voice booms from the heaven, "This is my Son whom I love. With him I am well pleased. Listen to him." And just like I think you or I would do, the disciples cower in fear. And Jesus tells them, "Don't be afraid." And as suddenly as this all has begun, it is over. Within the scope of our narrative lectionary and liturgical time of year, this is kind of the epitome of Epiphany in Matthew. Certainly appropriate for the final Sunday of the season, but this is also Matthew fleshing out what it means to him for Jesus to be the Messiah and for his disciples to be beginning to put these pieces together for themselves. If we go back to what we skipped over earlier in chapter 15, Peter, who is usually the voice of the disciples, he gets a bad rap for putting his foot in his mouth, but I think he's saying what we're all thinking, right? That's his job. He proclaims Jesus is the Messiah. This is in contrast to the priests and the scribes and the religious officials and all of the other hangers-on to the Jesus movement who think that maybe Jesus is a prophet, like Elijah, or maybe he's another John the Baptist figure. They think he's something that they've all seen before, something that they can understand and explain and fit into a box that is neatly tied up and wrapped and put away and forgotten. They think that he will be someone who will soon be gone and forgotten. A disappointment like the rest of the messiahs in that age. But as soon as the disciples recognize Jesus as the Messiah, a revolutionary, liberatory, insurrectionary, a figure who will overthrow Rome and restore the Davidic kingdom, Jesus tells them not to tell anyone. And that the real meaning of the situation is that he's going to die. You see, the powers that be cannot tolerate a challenge to their hegemony, and as a result, Jesus is going to be executed. In our time, or perhaps over the last couple of millennia, we have spiritualized this discussion. But I'm not saying it's necessarily bad, I just want to get back to the original text. We've said that Jesus knows he's going to die because he's God. Because he has to. Because the atonement hinges upon his death. I confess that I don't know whether or not these things are actually going through his head. But when I look at other revolutionary figures, even figures from our own last century, Martin Luther King Jr., Gandhi, Fred Hampton, and the like, they all kind of talked the same way. They see clearly the threat that they are, and they admit, even come to peace with, the reality that doing what they're doing will likely get them killed. It's striking to me that even Martin Luther King Jr.'s mountaintop sermon came the night before he was to be assassinated. I think it's really interesting that Jesus is as at peace with this as he can be in this moment. We get to Gethsemane later, and he's not so at peace with it, right? But he's as at peace with it as he can be right now, and he calls Peter Satan for not being able to accept him. And I find it even more interesting that in our narrative lectionary, we just skip right over that. All of us, I think, struggle to recognize reality when it means that things have to change. We don't like change. Nobody does. Some people like it less than others. Because all change, even good change, is loss. We say we want an equitable society, a free society, liberation for the poor and the oppressed, equality under the law for the marginalized, and then we see what it might actually cost us. It could cost us our jobs. It might cost us our homes. It might cost us our privilege, our social status, maybe even our lives. Because as popular as it can be to signal support with our voices, it is much, much less popular to explain to people why what they're doing is harming others. Because when you live in a system of harm that doesn't necessarily directly harm you, or perhaps even benefits you, it's much harder to step out of it or to work against it, because it feels like you're working against yourself. But is there a clearer example in Scripture of working against yourself than to pick up your own cross and follow Christ? The end of our faith is not to save oneself as an individual, but to work to bring the redeeming power of the kingdom and the life of the new creation into the present for all. I think Jesus knew this. I think Martin Luther King Jr. knew this. I think Gandhi knew it. I think deep down we all know it. And I think knowing it is what makes it so difficult to do. What good will it be for someone to gain the whole world yet forfeit their soul? We can accumulate power, wealth, and influence, and we can use those things for good. But so long as we work within the system will push us to support itself. To make reform is good. I'm not complaining about reform. It may even be all that we can do in our short lives. But to push for a better system is better. To dig that tunnel, even a spoonful or a handful at a time, in the hopes that someday the tunnel appears, is better. Change, I think, comes slowly at first and then all at once. And so we support reform and push for change. As Christian people, we are a people of the now and the not yet. We're saved now. In the present, we are redeemed and in the process of being redeemed. We also look for and see the day that all the world will be saved and all the world is redeemed. We dig that tunnel, though we may never use it, and wait for a time when all will be free. And I'm talking a good game up here, but I'll be fully honest and admit that I'm sharing this with a log in my own eye. I wish that I could be as brave as Dr. King. So I'm not up here to condemn anyone, because I struggle to condemn myself. But I hope that we can all be moved, can all be convicted, can listen to voices like Jennifer's and others to make the changes necessary to bring all the world to a better place as it could be. And with that, I say, Amen. Let it be so. At this time, Jenny, I'm going to invite you back up for the next piece of music. It's a lot to sit with, I think. There's a lot going on this morning.
This is a sing-along. I hope you're ready. Oh, the sun shines on you. Same sun shines on me too. The sun shines on you, and we are all God's children. All children need a love. They can do a lot of things, but not love. All children need a love, and we are all God's children. Yes, we are all God's children. Not all simple things are easy, and miracles take their own time. Not all simple things are easy, and we are all God's children. Yes, we are all God's children. Oh, I wish I had a banjo and the wisdom of a few more years. Oh, I wish I had a banjo when Pete Seeger says we're all God's children. Yes, we are all God's children. Lighty, hi, hi, oh, hi, hi, lighty, hi, oh, and we are all God's children. Yes, we are all God's children. Oh, the sun shines on you. Let's sing. Sun shines on me too. The sun shines on you, and we are all God's children. Yes, we are all God's children. Yes, we are all God's children.
Once again, I likely won't pray the specific requests this morning, but if there are any other requests anybody would like to bring forward at this time so that we can add to the back of our bulletin for the week. Does anybody have any requests to add this morning? Students suffering from mental illness? Yes. Jennifer?
So for the people
This prayer is titled, O God, Be With Us. It's from the book Liturgies from Below by Pantelios. It goes like this. O God, be with us. Let us be safe on our journey. Let our resources be shared among us, so that we can have a balance of life. May all the Christians follow your call. O God, we know that the leaders of the nations are careless. They are blind to the realities of the people. The motivation of money is greater than humanity. The greediness of rich people to control the resources is coddled by the government. Resources necessary for life are not being shared. The social structure puts further gaps between the rich and the poor, so that the rich do not know the poor. Selfishness, weakness, and inhuman treatment of others are not the path of Christ. The needs of the people are becoming overshadowed by the wants of the multinational corporation. So, Lord, we come before you this morning to ask that you would help the people to fight against these sad realities and the enemies who block our way forward. Let the downtrodden be empowered to resist the corrupt leaders of the nations. May all the resources taken from the people be returned through social services to meet the needs of the people. May the money be used to construct a path of development for the people. Let there be light among us. O God, give us strength to keep ourselves fixed on our destination. Let justice roll on like a river, righteousness like an ever-falling stream. May all the poor, marginalized people enjoy the grace of justice. Let the churches be the witness in realizing the kingdom of God. Let our faith have concrete praxis in changing the fate and circumstances of the marginalized community. We ask this in your holy name. Amen. Friends, God's word to us is invitational and never coercive. We are invited, both for the journey to the mountaintop and for the journey to the cross. As the offering is received this day, let us respond to God's invitation and give with hearts that are full and dreams that are rooted in hope. Your gifts create the world God is dreaming for us. Let us join God on this journey. Sacrifice of thanks and praise. You've shown us what is good, and the offering you require of us. Help us to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with you, our God. In the name of Christ our Savior. Amen. That's what I thought. So in a moment, I'm going to give the benediction and charge, and then you're free to do whatever you want. But I didn't get a chance to tell you this beforehand. Thank you again for being here. So in order to try and accommodate what has been asked for with these services, I want to open up the end to you for however long you'd like to play, or however long they'd like to listen, whatever the Spirit moves you to do, you're welcome to do. So, yeah. I think that hopefully covers it. This week, we begin the journey to the cross. Let us be open to wonder, that we may glimpse the glory of God. Let us be committed to justice, that God's light may shine more brightly in our world. Let us journey in hope and confidence, listening for God's voice, crying out, beloved, as we go. Now the Son of God is rising, the Spirit of God is descending, and the voice of God is speaking. You are my beloved people. In you I am well pleased. Go in peace to love and serve the Lord. Amen.
I come from a Catholic tradition where it's a little bit like pulling teeth to get people to sing, but I know that people really appreciate the music. And from the folk tradition, we have a way of conveying songs with our voice without our instruments. And since I played the first song about waking up, I thought I would share with you one final song about going to sleep. And you are welcome to sit for this. And or don't let me stand between you and the bakes. I'm smarter than that. Please go ahead. Wake up, sleepy, the sun is rising, calling us to play. Banished is the endless sorrow, the world is new today. Listen to the breeze calling what we have yet to learn. We are children of the ocean, longing for return. Clouds are dancing, painting pictures, loving us with shade. Later on, if you feel sleepy, we'll visit a friend in bed. In a manger under starlight by a maiden fair, a child will take your burdens from you if you'll leave them there. Oh, my love, my dearest care, the angels tend you everywhere. Oh, my greatest gift of all, the angels catch us when we fall asleep.